Does everybody here know the concept of the word divisible? It's an interesting word. It isolates the comprehension of a specific topic down to an entire experience level of anybody that decides to sort of attribute it to a concept. Now, you have your average everyday 25-year-old male that has a PG rating going experience based on the concept of every Friday night the government telling him it's time to take a girl out on a date. Now we're talking like puberty leading into 18 years old and Friday night, meaning the first stages of meeting a girl and taking her into the sort of detached sort of nature of meet and greet without the sort of overbearing nature of what my intentions are, whether they know about their intentions or not. And that's really where you have sort of a medium ground for any sort of romance to develop. But division is an important word in the concept because it gives you a basic understanding if you are a male to what it is your government expects out of you as an American. Now, it's easy to see because it's predominantly dominating all cable versus, and accompanied to all of movies. So it's, kind of a consistency throughout the 90s, throughout the early 2000th century or whatever. This basic way of thinking. Now, it's sort of, if you're a male of the American nationality, sort of your obvious approach based on wanting to be a proud American. Now, there's obviously the 50s and 60s, and there's obvious to the war type of American versus the casual American, which is trying to be more morality decisive. And division and decisiveness is extremely important because where there isn't war, you're trying to just show your appreciation by your obvious governmental hand-down of expectancy. Now, you've been handed down your PG rating on what it is expected out of you. So how to treat a woman so that you don't disappoint your presidency, you don't disappoint your Congress or anything political. You want to make sure that you're American through and through. Your red, white, and blue in your 50 stars is something that they can rely on. Your PG rating of parental guidance is something that you appreciate. You're not bad, you're not great, but you're parental guidance oriented. President, you can rely on me. You're not R, which is restricted. You're not X, which is X-rated. You're not XXX, which is definitely thrown out over the ocean to be found in a nuclear holocaust. You're parental guidance rated. So says Hollywood. If you watch this, then you are parental guidance rated. And so there is the existence of the American man that is parental guidance rated. Now, while we're talking about this, I think it's safe to concern yourselves with the concept of some group out there that is sort of oriented themselves with a caveman perspective of a club and your acknowledgement of the forward moving wheel. Now everybody knows that the caveman era is long behind us. However, for the lack of intelligence and high school diploma, it almost seems as if the presidency, if taken over by some sort of unseen foreign government that needs to sort of buy themselves some time, they might actually lean towards the caveman conception as a style improvement. Just out of convenience alone, not because it's true or right or even normal, just because there's been a facility that's been radicalized by a foreign government, and in that regard, based on insecurities of maybe a cultural indifference or maybe a language indifference, they feel like bringing involved to the world a certain caveman persona is in style, based on their own limitations of being a third world country that managed to manufacture a sexual experience or party that went sideways, that desperation was personified to a foreign government, to an Americanist government that was extremely proficient in domestication, but somehow acknowledging the fact that foreign affairs was important, managed to make a bad decision in a party that went into pure and unadulterated desperation, which led to maybe the American flag maybe being inhibited by a foreign interaction of some kind. We might have an American government that is a foreign government nationality. If that were the case, you would need a lot of American boys next door and PG-rated husbands and boyfriends that would need to be inflicted upon to the new style-infected format of caveman jurisdiction. People that are, by all standards, better blessed physically by knowing from birthright alone to break this one law of every sort of Christianity religion that knows every single country in the world, to just bend or break that one rule or 10 commandments, you might say, as to be physically blessed by a foreign national, other 6 other continents that might actually appreciate burning the American flag to their own benefit by making it over here eventually by the common eventuality of breaking the PG rating so that they could confront our shoreline. And in that result, giving them the benefit of a physical alteration as to further their own personal needs by us not having an actual American nationality in the first place based on a party that went sideways. So you have the concept of videography, pornography that reaches over oceans that might actually contribute to particular currencies, that might actually contribute to the stock market exchange, that has no real science to it besides a definite confusion. An unknowing America that never figured out across the board how does the stock market exchange work could lend to the concept of bad means good. Sex sells in its actuality. Girls that break the law in America, where their video goes world, benefits a company, a nationality that is the United States of America in secret, where they pass along to their friends the same videos, to where their sins actually makes it towards a future where the American shorelines actually find boats that are not American. Their promise of a future is guaranteed, and physicality suddenly has reason. Breaking the law is more popular than keeping the law and sanctimony safe. Marriage laws, PG ratings, parental guidance, which in essence makes the boy next door or someone that follows the PG rating of parental guidance actually the minority? We always have the concept of Jesus Christ worldwide. Christianity, Superman. Christ meaning Christian, Christian meaning courteous, courteous meaning thinking upon others in any way that you would want anybody to think upon yourself. Courteousness, personified. Now, if you have a United States of America that has a lot of temptations and a lot of airplane travel, and you have a lot of cultural indifferences and barriers that you need to overcome to try and actually expand your way of thinking, but in essence you find out that they're not wanting to expand their way of thinking. They're wanting more so to find out about the white woman with pink private parts. It's really only found in designated areas in the world. So you're talking their thinking, and in supplying you with 10-on-1 versus your very, very extremely safeguarded pink princess, you find out about the concept of battery power versus sanctimony. So you go to try to stretch forth your promised land, you find out that 10-on-1 hurts more than just where heaven was originated, which is in the very first building blocks of wanting to expand the European district into a promised land of America, which had for a very long time its promise of just a lot of empty land and then just a very casual natured Indian interaction. But given the fact that there's the African nature and there's the Asian nature, it was only a matter of time before anybody wanted to inflict upon that very easy correspondence. So you have the situation where you want to make the world go around and everybody get along, but you always were harboring the concept of the angelic white girl with the pink private parts, which is only found in particular genres, particular demographics, particular geographics. So you're talking their thinking. You're talking at all times in their thinking. And whenever you have an American, North America land where they only attributed all of their accomplishments with a black community under the surface, and I mean everything to do with farmland, everything to do with the beginning stages of making the very beginning stages of produce and economics, you always have the promise of the possibility of retribution in its slavery format, meaning you are what you are, but you reap what you sow. Now, if that's the case, then you always have the possibility of we are in 2022 where we are all perfect, but one in every 5 generations of every family generations is a colony where they were abusing the slavery concept. And in every single world, in every single country, in every single continent, somebody might make the argument of you deserve whatever you have coming towards you. It's not about where you've reached to. It's not about where your ambitions have led you to. It's about where I say you deserve you are. Meaning you reap what you sow. You're not what you thought. Now your time has ended. And in a world where we have 7 continents and the electronical age has reached its ultimate potential with social networking, everybody is asking the same question. Who should pay? Because ugly has reached the top. And I only want to go further. We have a world of planet Earth where modeling has taken a second seat, where acting has taken a second seat, where singing has taken a second seat to politics, to a college education of somebody that spent 8 years to say, my degree says I'm smarter than you. And it's taken a slow moving train to reach the very top of Mount Everest, but the only people in 2022 that's standing at the top of Mount Everest is somebody that was so desperate that to beat their sibling in their household that was naturally gifted, to ask the government, if I spend 8 years to make you swear to my sibling that I'm smarter and prettier than them, will you say I can tell them where they can go shove it? We live in 2022 where the world has finalized that enough people, an entire population, an entire cloud of college graduates can determine our weather, even if it's wrong by natural attraction. We live in a world where 75 years of all of the colleges added together in all of the world, ugly prevails. At the exact same time, ugly prevails. And there's no telling what will happen next. But we made a loophole, and they all have jumped through it 3 generations in a row. And there is no music, and there is no modeling. There is no fashion whatsoever except a common target. We are at that breaking point of nobody knows what will happen, except all continents know about Christianity, Christ, and courteousness. And everybody knows that their favorite waiter at every restaurant deserved every blessing in every girl's soul because of how many ugly people stepped on their favorite waiter. And no one ever asked him his opinion. I'm not here to tell you how this ends. I'm here to tell you how we died. I was only here to find my wife, and you were here to tell me how the 7 bridesmaids killed her. All right, so who there has ever heard of the concept of 5 industries? Now, I mean like world industries. Now, the most important industry worldwide is the architectural industry. It feeds off of every single law being broken by every single female in the whole world. It is the number one go-to place to break every single religious rule as to perform for the transportation and roadway or railroad or light rail industry that we know of. Also, it feeds the corporations of any building or architectural advancement that we know of. Anytime you basically go to CNN and you see that some sort of railroad has been finished or some sort of building has finally been finished, some sort of architectural manifest delight has been finalized, it has basically been involved in every single religious morality rule ever broken by the nearby females to that particular corporation in any given country or city or what have you. That's the industry that makes the world go round. In fact, it almost could be argued that religion blossomed so as to keep this one individual corporation's secrets to a ceremonious sort of private, exotic, like VHS, sort of psychedelic pornographic experience. It's extremely opposed to anything to do with your marriage vows of every single kind, shape, and nature. But we are in 2022 and there is major advancements worldwide, God bless them. You could make the argument that women that are in particular demographics or geographic locations that have extraordinary sized boobs that by birthright alone were to go to the grocery store and end up in the wrong place at the wrong time with scenery or men in the wrong sort of genealogy, sort of cousins or grandchildren's type of basic accidental position would find them to be just the exact place to nest their sort of uncontrollable urges towards a background that has made it so they need to sort of relieve themselves in a reward type of body embodiment. And that's just hearsay. That's just really nothing that was talked about on Oprah or Jenny Jones. Anything like that was talked about by Dr. Phil, considering that tough love is the really best approach for any sort of kid that's developed psychological natures of frustrations. But that's an entirely different conversation. But archaeology and transportation archaeology, anything to do with buildings in cities being built up by gravel, things that are very, very, very unflattering, that take the concept of owning Mexican corporations or Asian corporations to 100 times the regular sort of conception of the American working couple. Anything to do with American entertainment as far as Beverly Hills goes. Nothing that's talked about in your worst state movie about factory slavery or sweatshops. All of that's never talked about would go into the archaeology industry. Your favorite non-talked about corporation that maybe is the reason on why certain womanly body parts are sort of intensified. They have to shop at the same places that you shop at. They have to eat also. Unfortunately, we are not in a castle era. You might just live in a neighborhood where they live. And God bless them, they want to know where they can find a girl that physically is able to satisfy all of their breaking of the law mentality, meaning that's not the way I roll. Just for them. It's a fast, easy way to identify physically who was born to break the rules just for them. It's a fast world of physiology in that genre, and girls that have particular body parts is a fast way to not have the conversation that they never liked having in the first place. Physiology in a world where archaeology is really the way the world you can make millions and millions of worlds of people's couples, children's lives go round, is a fast way to detect where their hearts truly are, as far as obedience goes and as far as submission goes. And because of the lack of racism and prejudice in the workplace, they find that the excitedness of the whole ordeal sometimes leans to the fact that they get to have natural-born espionage agents who can then be someone that explains to them the missing industries of this one world that I was talking about, where we live on planet Earth, where there are 7 different industries, of ones that are actually working and ones that are actually dead industries. You have what I talked about, which is the archaeological industry, you have also missing industries that are being demolitioned 1 year at a time. The acting industry, the music industry, the modeling industry, anything to do with money that can grow on trees for the children. They dissipate year by year more and more. And as long as you have that being something of a mysticism, you always have the concept of the world of building blocks and deals that are done in meeting rooms, where it's the harnessing of slavery, the manipulation of sadness and sorrow built to positive buildings being erected in different cities, in different states, in different countries. You always have half of the world at odds with the other half of the world, especially when you add the concept of cultural indifferences and you add the concept of desperation. Whenever you're somebody that's third generation millionaire, you always have their building blocks are white, and when they go overseas, the desperation is extremely erotic. You then have the makings of the next generation of more archaeology. And I mean buildings, and I mean transportation. Whenever you have that furthering itself, you always have the men on top that deliberate slavery and the building blocks of actual buildings to a really unorthodox format of pornography. Whenever you have that and decades added on top of it, you have the reason to believe that the possibility of Jesus Christ and Christianity having its final say. Meaning, pushing and shoving your way into everybody's way of life at the expense, when you're overseas in a cultural indifference corporation and country, when you make the deal that has the expense of your own children back where you are not at anymore, you finally run into your first strand of bad luck. 7 continents is a very interesting concept in an earthly scope of the world. The further you get away from the way you were raised, and the more sex can introduce your new format of your brain activity, means the further and further you get away from your original way that you were, means the more and more you're not American. If you then are somebody that adds being in a powerful position that strikes a contractual deal, you then find yourself in a position where you're no longer American at all. And in that regard, you're American, but you've done an un-American deal. And in that regards, also, you can be looked at as somebody that has in a foreign country that's doing America. That makes it easier for them to someday become over here and lay on top of America. And that's the concept that we might be in the year 2022. On the outside, please do your American duty by going to your American sports facility while we're doing our very, very espionage duty to making deals with, and this is assuming that we're already a foreign country in Washington, D.C., to further our intentions to lay on top of the American way as a foreign government, while distracting the American working woman and working man and working family with things that while using the abstract nature of saying, please don't do these 10 commandments, while not being law, you basically can find yourself with 50% of the United States of America always bending towards the concept of please don't do this, which lends in 10 commandments or 10 open doors to the everyday average American community, where one spouse is breaking the 10 commandments while the other spouse is following the 100 American constitutional Statue of Liberty rules. Which in essence means it's just enough to always have 75 years of finding which foreign government or foreign country wants to dominate the United States of America based on the sexual attraction nature of finding out what happens when you go from the American shoreline into a foreign country of pure desperation. Not to mention the concept of what happens with one sexual partner versus the battery chemistry experiment of two sexual partners, not to mention 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the American versus a foreigner. So whenever you add together that sexual problem versus power and politics, you always are running against the clock. You never can trust your American government whenever there's power involved, because there's always 1 to 10 of a battery influence. Are we ever safe? Absolutely not. Are you always being thrown something to cloud you from the reality? Absolutely so. The only thing that we know for sure is that the meek will inherit the earth. Whatever you know, you never knew. That's why there's no N-O versus K-N-O-W or K-N-E